you need to wear red today. Great. By the third child, I'm like, I think maybe you were supposed to do something today, but I don't know what it is. So, I mean, certainly those days of like just one kid feel really easy. But when you have like papers and emails and all the things flying, that gets, trickier as you get older and the more organized you are, the better chance you have of being successful.
I am on a journey to get better in all areas of my life, and I want to do it with you. Welcome to the Being Better Everyday podcast, where we dig deep into all the things a millennial mom needs to know. From how to juggle your passions with your full-time job, to asking the hard questions about hormones and health, and learning from one another along the way. I am Julie Wenslick, and as a mom, business owner, and corporate girly, sometimes life can feel like a lot. So join me in the journey of being better every day, where we create habits and routines that support your life, create calm in the chaos, and put the you back in your everyday. Grab those headphones, put on your shoes, and join me on a walk while we get started with today's episode. Welcome back to the Being Better Everyday podcast. Today we have a special topic, and I can count it under being better every day because it is all about back to school and systems and hopefully getting some wisdom from what I call a seasoned mom, although maybe you don't like that term. But I have a guest on the podcast today. She was actually my first guest about this time last year, now that I think about it. And so my sister-in-law, Jen, well, I almost called you Jennifer. Being official with this. My sister-in-law, Jen, is with us. Say hi.
Hello. Good morning or good day.
Yeah, I guess depending on when you record this. And the irony of this, it is morning right now of when we are recording this, because it kind of plays into the fact that she is in a very different season of life than I am. So Jen has 3 kids, and I'm going to totally screw up their ages. 14, 13, 10, right?
Close. Madeline's not quite 13 yet.
Oh, it's September. I always say that she's 13.
It's okay.
So
she's already a teenager.
Yes. 2 teenagers and a 10-year-old, and they will be in 5th, 7th, 9th. That I actually always remember because it's odd numbers and then even numbers. So
got it.
Part. And obviously, for those who know me, I have a 5-year-old. So my daughter is going into kindergarten, and I thought I would have Jen on to talk about school, back to school season, the systems that help her, right? As a mom of 3 kids, we're recording this at 7 a.m. on a Sunday because that's the only time that she had. Not exactly my prime recording time. And, that again just shows they have something every single night. They have usually multiple things every single night. And I know that won't change with school. So I kind of did the intro for you, but anything you want to add as we get into it?
I think you covered it.
So as we get into this, I guess for you, how do you manage the back to school? This is your 10th year, if I did that math right, of doing school, right? 9th grade. Yeah.
Yep.
So as you go into your 10th year of managing this back to school transition, what, let's start with like school supply list. Now, I think everyone kind of knows this hack by now, but how do you kind of manage the whole school supply season?
So school supply shopping at our house happens in usually the beginning of July. We were a couple weeks later this year, but they are all currently sitting in a box, waiting to be, although my daughter already put them in her backpack because apparently she's ready. But we do school supply shopping in July most of the time because that's when the majority of the supplies are on sale. You can get the correct green, yellow, red, whatever notebook folder without having to hunt. And then since the COVID years, we now do our back to school shopping primarily online, which has saved so much, especially when you need this many of, this color or this size or whatever. So we now do mostly Target shopping online just because that is where I can find the majority of the things, and then sprinkle in, other pieces if there's a unique item on their list.
Well, and the thing about that too is I find it interesting that you do Target because you're in central Wisconsin and that your Target is like not Minnesota Target. As
But
we always joke.
online is.
Right. I actually did back to school shopping online this year as well. Now, Danny's going to private school, so her back to school list is a lot shorter because they're just charging us money for the school supplies for the most part. But, I had to buy Ziploc bags and I had to buy, one specific red, composite notebook, the
Composite
speckled
notebook.
one. And I had to get those on Amazon because Walmart and Target didn't have a red and a green one. They only had black ones. And so again, having that online, I can't imagine doing I don't think they would be as specific with back to school shopping if we didn't have online though.
Oh, they were.
Were they?
Yes. We spent quite a few years walking up and down the aisles, trying to figure out what we needed. And
Oh,
yep, it's good
thank
time.
you. I
I
have this.
actually enjoyed it for a little bit and then realized how online could change our lives and have not gone back.
Well, and the funny thing is also, there's different philosophies even on, so our stuff is also packed in a backpack actually behind me. And Danny, I have like the Ziploc bags in her backpack. And she's like, these aren't school supplies, Mom. They have to come out. And she's like,
Yeah. Well,
these
and
are
we end
not
up
it.
with Kleenex and Clorox wipes and
Yep, we have
Ziploc
those
bags
too.
and all the things. So I do know some other philosophies, and this isn't a bad philosophy either. They make a special date with each of their children and take them back to school shopping, like in the store, and let them pick things out so that two can be like lean into each of your own individual children. We've done online separate dates instead of that method because then, they can pick out their individual things, but we don't have to stand in a store with the other 15 to 50 people.
Now, do you take your kid back to school clothes shopping at all?
We don't, mostly because the school shop, what we've found anyway, is the seasons don't change. Most of your school year is going to be winter. And for the most part, pants and the sweatshirts and the long sleeves are not out in the stores in July and August. They're going to be in the stores in
Like
September,
September.
October. Plus, with the children, just growing all the time, we just rotate seasons. So we don't do a big back to school shopping. We tried when they were younger and got frustrated because the clothes that we would want them to be wearing most of the school year wouldn't really work.
Do you think that'll change as your teenagers get older? Like, even if it's I don't think so because I feel like they'll just ask for it
I
when they
mean,
want.
we just do it when their size changes or, we just do it at a different time. I don't focus on the back to school time when
It,
we change their wardrobes.
it was such a huge thing for me growing up. And now it's like, well, now, especially with Danny, at least for now, being in uniforms, I'm like, oh, there, she's not, there is no back to school clothes. I mean, we had to buy uniforms, obviously, but that's not fun. So, she won't even get that experience either. But at the same time, I feel like I don't nowadays we'll just buy clothes when we need them versus waiting until back to school
Yeah, I
season.
mean, we often will get them a new pair of shoes because they seem to need
Yeah.
shoes every, so many months. So we do in the August timeframe, we'll let them pick out a new pair of shoes.
Where's your
Um,
recommendation for shoes?
oh goodness. We don't have many options
Oh yeah.
here, and online shopping is not great, I don't think, for shoes when their shoe size isn't consistent. So we typically take them to Rogan's, but we really just don't have that many options.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Uh, yeah, we have to get white soled shoes for gym, right? Which are just
I mean,
regular shoes that are not
they
black on
are.
the
They
bottom.
just don't want the black bottoms because they scuff up the gym floors.
Okay. Yeah, learning experience.
We just buy their tennis shoes so that they are that way. My children don't have 500 pairs of shoes. They usually have a pair of tennis shoes that we're replacing every 2 to 3 months because their feet either grow or they ruin them.
Yeah. And that was a reference to my daughter having 500 pairs of shoes. So
but you can, and it's okay.
Yes. And they're
They've just
small for
always
now.
gravitated towards the gym shoes, and that has been great because then I don't have to remember which day is gym day, and we don't
She has to
get
keep them at school for us.
we don't. And they recommend that, but we've never done that. They just wear their gym shoes.
I see. So now going into kind of like the school year, obviously this will be my first time going through the transition. And I've been warned by many of moms that the kindergarten transition is difficult. But obviously, not everyone listening is dealing with just the kindergarten transition. So, do you prep your kids at all? Like, what do you do? I mean, I happen to know, right? You have a teenager who used to go to bed at a normal time and now goes to bed at midnight every day. And so, what are you kind of looking for or looking at as you go back to like the school transition from a
Yeah,
schedule
so
perspective?
up until this year, my children have always been relatively early to bed year round and relatively early risers. I now only have one of the three are early risers, and the other two would prefer not to get up right away in the morning. We, on nights that and we do this in the summer, if they have activities in the morning, we set an earlier bedtime. And then obviously that helps to be able to get up. The two older ones bus comes at roughly 6:50 in the morning. So they generally don't have a big morning routine. They get up and go. So other than eating quick something and they're on the bus. So they don't need a ton of time in the morning, but they still, I mean, they need to get up somewhere in the 6 o'clock hour, which is quite early for them now. Wasn't always. 5 o'clock was the norm that everyone kind of woke up in the house, other than my husband. But now we will be setting an earlier bedtime, and we will probably try to transition that a week or two before
I was
school
just gonna say
starts.
like a week in advance.
Yeah, and they have had morning activities and
Mm.
things going on throughout the summer, so we haven't strayed other than the oldest that does enjoy staying up till 12, 1 o'clock. But on the nights that he had or mornings he has things, we make him go to bed earlier.
I see. And so on the whole breakfast thing, I've never had to feed my daughter breakfast.
We didn't either until they went to school.
Yeah. So, and I am also a little bit worried. So Danny's schedule is thankfully a little bit later because she is also a kid who doesn't like to get up in the morning. I wake her up generally between 7:15 and 7:30 every day. And I think I might be able to keep that schedule or like close to it because she doesn't have to get dropped off to school until somewhere between 8:30 and 8:50. So we have time, right, in the mornings, but she's also never eaten breakfast at our house. I'm, what do you, I mean, do you like try to get protein in your kids? Like, do you, I mean, because like for me, I'm like, well, she'll easily eat carbs. I just don't know if that will last, you know?
Our house hasn't been strict, so twofold. A lot of times they either have an earlier lunch. So my kids have had lunch as early as 11 or 10, even 10:45 some days. And then in the elementary years, they often have a snack. So if they have that really early lunch, then they would have an afternoon snack. If they have the late, mid normal-ish time lunch, they would normally do a morning snack. So well, yes, talk about protein and, choices that are going to keep us full longer. I am not strict on the breakfast at our house and let them kind of make their decision, give them the choices. If they have a day that, if there's testing or there's something that they really need to be, focused and on, and, it's going to take a lot more energy in the day, then we really try to push a better choice than maybe, the cereal that they would prefer.
How do you know if they're snack? Do you pack a snack or is it like
Well, so at our schools, it's a part of the supply list. So we have to
oh,
send like, boxes of whatever, some kind of cracker, cereal, something. And then they just do a communal snack. But everybody has to bring 3 boxes of snack. In the older elementary ages, they encourage them, they can bring their own choice. But in And they also ask for the crackers or whatever. But when you get to like fourth, fifth, sixth graders, a box of
Protein
crackers
bar.
goes
Yeah.
like nowhere
Right.
for them. So they will choose to bring their own item when they get to the middle high school. I mean, they just survive. We pack after school snacks for
Yeah.
the middle to high
Activities.
schoolers from a like activity perspective. Their bus ride is a bit longer. So just giving them those options for before or after school. So I pack a handful of protein bars and fruit, fruit leathers or things like that that can hold all day and in their backpack.
So the biggest worry of mine, and so for those who don't know me well, this may come at a surprise because I am a planner and systems person, but when it comes to personal tasks, suck.
It's not
And
your forte.
I am very organized when it comes to work and my business and keeping on top of all of that. But I would say home systems for me are something that I tend to just not want to do. And so school and managing and monitoring my personal email is just, I'm dreading it, honestly. And, I had talked to my husband doesn't work full time, and I had talked to him about, hey, like you need to step up and help me, right? And I'm already realizing that's not going to happen. So with the amount of emails that we've already gotten. So let's jump into kind of systems I think let's just talk about like the whole email and schedules thing first, and then we can talk about like what you do to kind of reset after school days and that kind of thing. And again, some of this we covered at what podcast episode number 2, but for those people who weren't here a year ago or need a refresh. So, first, I did this, but talk about one of the main things you did that you recommended I do to keep track of all the emails. So, your family email thing.
Yeah. Yep. So we created a family email so that everything goes to one place and we can view it. Sometimes that slightly backfires on me when my husband will open the email and then not tell me about it. So I will scroll back a little bit just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I also, with 3 children in now 2 different schools, there is a lot, and they have gone away from, when my youngest was little, everything came home in their notebook, and I mean in a folder at the end of the day. You could pull it out, write it down, send it back. Very little comes home in folders now, and everything comes through in an email, which sometimes with so many teachers is really hard to keep track of. But the best thing I do for myself now, and this is really for school and sports and all the things, is to immediately write it down in a calendar. If it's a date in the future, if it's something that's due in the future, if it's whatever color they need to wear for this week or special event or, whatever, just getting it out of the email and into paper, because there are a lot of emails. There's a lot of communication that comes home
Do
throughout the
you
school year.
do you like print them or do you like literally only just write them down in your planner
I
right
write them
away?
down. I mean, a lot of the schools have gone to here creating these like newsletters that have these like long list of a whole bunch of things, and then you have to like click in and go to this. It's not my favorite, but it's not easy to just print all the pages. Sometimes I'll print them if, there's a lot of information that I might want to make sure that, now that the kids are getting older, they can also consume. I have added, in some cases, their own emails to things if multiple emails can be added so that they get it as well, just for an extra reminder. They're not great at it yet. They're still,
When
learning
did
that skill.
when did you set up emails for your kids?
Well, Carson has one, but he doesn't use it
Yeah.
really, but more the
Middle school?
middle school and a little more activity based for them. But, as they've gotten a phone, they've needed an email address as
Oh,
well.
okay. That makes sense. I was like, I guess I didn't even know your kids had emails. So, yeah, because I think about the email I have flagged right now in my email about transportation registration, and I have to register by August 1st. And I don't have a planner yet. And this is part of the problem. But I'm like, okay, well, I need to print that. I need to fill that out. And it's just, I don't know. I'm stressing.
Yeah, I think the other thing is the immediate thing. I have found managing multiple schedules and communications, like if I don't do it right away, I forget and then I don't get back to it. So either it's put it on a list so that I do it, when I have, a couple hours in, the immediate week, or I immediately do it. And we'll get comments a lot from, if we have to pay, say, even just a fee, wow, you paid that really fast. I'm like, because if I don't do it, I won't do it.
Right.
So it just has to happen. It has to get written down or sent, or I forget.
So I think 3 years ago, I designed your planner, 2 or 3 years ago. And
Probably at least three.
yeah. And you're one of the consistent, hey, we haven't had any edits to it. Well, I guess we did do some slight edits, but beside the point.
In
Yeah.
general.
And one of the things that you have on your planner is, so the weekly layout is, columns for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but then each kid has their own box. And again, then you write your activities or you write your school spirit wear things, right, within each of those days. Now, I'm going to adapt that, and I'm redesigning my planner. So my Being Better Everyday planner doesn't have enough to do boxes for me on a daily basis because I do use it for work and P&W designs. So I will be adapting my planner to a daily layout, and I'm going to have a Danny box, right? We talked about this because of that same reason, right? So I'm going to make sure that I have, yeah, a planner from August 1st to December 31st before I print the next, whatever, 6 months. And each day is going to get a Danny box because again, there's a whole like 3-page thing of the activities that they have. And I know it's already lost, right? In my
Yeah.
downloads folder.
And those kind of things like would be comparable to like our school lunch calendar that comes out. I print that. I put it in a spot that the children know where it is. I know where it is. We review it weekly. That kind of stuff we do. It's just on the inside of one of our cupboards, just kind of tacked in there so that they can open it and see what the schedule is. I let them go through the lunch menu and decide whether or not they want hot lunch or not. There's a few days that they're just not a fan, and then we'll pack them a cold lunch those days. But
I
having
didn't,
those kind of things in a space where they can reach is helpful. And we also have wall calendar that I will write their like field trips and things that are kind of unique, but also don't really impact our day-to-day life from a like you're still going to school at this time, you're still getting picked up at this time, but you might have to wear this certain color, you might have to like do this certain thing, or you're going on a field trip and that's going to require a lunch. I write that stuff on the wall calendar for a visual for them, and then I'm not cluttering my I mean, you don't have as complex as a schedule, but it certainly like allows them to visualize those things and kind of gets it out of the email, out of the brain.
well, and I plan on doing that for our wall calendar of just the month one. Like ours is just a month, right? Not a week. But so that my husband also then sees it and it's not just in my planner. And so if there are things like special volunteer days or whatever that he can see it and know, because obviously my 5-year-old doesn't read yet. But I didn't even think about the fact that the school lunch, there will be like a lunch menu. And that's a thing
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
I should probably get my printer working. That would help.
Yeah.
Once we get into school, how do you reset every day? Like what does your morning routine and your evening routine look like from that perspective?
So if our evenings have a little space in it, I will do the reset at night. Oftentimes I'm just done at the end of the night. And so they will empty their backpacks, charge their Chromebooks, make sure their lunch boxes are empty. The kids can kind of do those pieces, make sure their homework is done, all of that. In the mornings, I'll go through and make sure, especially because the two don't have a lot of time in the morning, make sure they have a water bottle, verify they have their school stuff. As they're starting to get older, we're going to start shifting that responsibility to them just because they need to be full functioning humans that can't have me doing everything for them. But for, their younger years, it is making sure that everything was in their backpack. I had signed all the forms and they're in their folders. Chromebooks were back in after they had been charged, water bottles, lunches if they were needed, all ready to go. I prefer to do that in the morning just because my brain is a little more alert. I have a quiet house and some space to do that. And then they're all kind of ready to go for the day when they get up.
I would imagine that I'm not going to have a ton of reset required at kindergarten because she's not going to take her technology home. They leave it at school at this
Yeah.
age.
And they
And
just are switching to that here. I think fourth or fifth grade is when they're going to now have them take it. And if it's
mhm.
younger, they're going to keep them at school,
Yep,
which
that's how it's going to be for
honestly,
us too.
it was just a charging exercise for us. Like we didn't use the Chromebook here at home. We just were responsible to charge it every night.
Do the Chromebook batteries last all day?
They typically do. I mean, I don't know that
Oh,
they're on it constantly all
right.
day, but they also have their chargers with them. So if they would
Oh,
need to,
okay.
but they're supposed to have their Chromebooks charged when they get there every day.
Okay. So, specific to kindergarten, I do have a number of friends actually that are sending kids to school for the first time this fall. What is your tips for us new moms? And I say new moms, we're not new moms, but new school
New
moms.
school moms. I find your systems, find your groove, find what times of the day you have to, reset. Typically you have a school calendar with all the days off and all, the early releases or the, late starts or whatever your school does and just get that documented in a place that's visible. If that's a calendar on the wall, if it's a planner, if it's something, because those days tend to creep up and you have to have a plan for all, if you are a working parent, you're going to need a plan. And, sometimes that means, you're going to need childcare and that might work great if you have like a grandparent, but, we don't have anybody here. We've been able to make it work with our, PTO flex scheduling, and that's been great. But, they also have, Boys and Girls Club here or the YMCA program, but you have to sign up for those early and in the summer. So, looking for those opportunities and, what your school is going to require. The Wisconsin just passed a new education requirement for our teachers. And so the elementary schools are going to have a lot less days of school this year. I think it's like 6, 8, somewhere in that range, additional days off of school that the older kids are going to be going to school. So certainly like that's another interesting if you had older children that were watching, like not going to work. So just being aware of what your calendar looks like and how many days you have off and what you're going to do. And then keeping things simple, like don't, your kids will do great. It's just a scheduled routine. It's going to be bumpy in the beginning. Fall for us is always bumpy. It tends to jump into fundraiser season and it's certainly schools and sports and all the things are, asking for, plus there's school fees. And so just really watching your emails, keeping yourself organized has been the way that I've survived. With one child, that's so much easier. As you add more children to the mix, it progressively gets worse. I was so on top of everything when one kid, you need to wear red today. Great. By the third child, I'm like, I think maybe you were supposed to do something today, but I don't know what it is. So, I mean, certainly those days of like just one kid feel really easy. But when you have like papers and emails and all the things flying, that gets, trickier as you get older and the more organized you are, the better chance you have of being successful.
And this isn't necessarily school related, but can we talk about the chaos of registrations? So, give everyone the example of what you did. Was it this week where you registered Madeline for something? And I think it was this week.
Oh, I
Yeah.
mean, okay. Yeah. So fall registrations have become recently super competitive. And even for summer school, it opened at a very specific time. And if you want the general classes that they take as many kids as they want, do it whenever within the registration period. But there are certain classes that the seat limits are 20. And so if you're not on in that first, I mean, the classes that my kids signed up for summer school were all gone within like 3 minutes. They were full. And, even extra than things like dance was the example that, you were pointing out. And registration opened at midnight. I didn't know that until last year. We got lucky and got into all of our classes. And the studio does do a good job of trying even to get the waitlist kids in, but there's only a certain amount of spots and registration opened at midnight. So set an alarm for midnight and went in and registered to make sure that, our schedules are more complex with more children. We need to know, like, these are the times that are going to work for our family to get into these classes. And within, even at midnight, waking up, and she's in the older classes, so they're a little bit easier to get in. There was only a couple seats left and they were closed the next day. So it's just wild how competitive some things are to get in. And like certainly knowing, we've done that with swim lessons. We've done it
Yeah, I
with
was gonna say
dance.
swim.
We've done it with summer school. And it's stressful as a parent to be like, how do I get my kids into these things that they want to be in that have limited capacity?
Yeah, that I think is the thing that, even with swim lessons around here, when we were trying to get Danny into just the normal community swim, it was extremely competitive and we couldn't get in for a good year. And then we switched to FOSS and now we know, I actually just wrote it down as you were talking. I was like, oh yeah, I have to register for FOSS on the 30th for the next section. But I'm most nervous, and I'm sure I'll have you back on when we talk about like summer next year, right? And
Yeah.
all the camps and what the heck we're gonna do with
Yeah.
Danny for that summer if we can't bring her back to daycare. We might be able to bring her back to daycare, but if we can't, I have no idea what we're gonna do. And
Yeah. And there's a lot of options, but you almost around spring break-ish time is when we kind of have that conversation at our house to figure out what is next year going to look like. Because typically right after spring break or right around spring break is that's when summer school opens. That's when camps are opening. Like
I
it's
heard ours
March.
is February.
Okay. So, some places are even earlier. So, so maybe you have the conversation at Christmas. Like, it's just bananas, like trying to figure out, what are you going to do with your kids and and it's where they're planning. I understand. Like, it makes sense, but it's not on your radar in the winter. Like, what are we doing in the summer? But it's a necessary thing.
So with 5 minutes left, what other anything else that you wrote down, brainstormed that you is helpful as those kind of reminders for parents as they go back to school season?
I think for us, certainly the younger ages, it's a lot on the parents and making sure that you don't miss a communication or a back to school night or a supply list or, whatever your schools are asking for, requiring. As we transition now into that, like a little bit older level, it's going to be figuring out that balance of, okay, what are we going to make our kids responsible for and what are we going to make us responsible for? So that's kind of our like next level. We'll have a freshman this year in high school. Here that's in the middle school, which is kind of weird, but he's still a freshman
Yeah, I
in
guess
high
I was
school.
thinking he was going to high school, but he's not.
They're not here.
Yeah.
The ninth graders are still in the middle school, but he's only got 4 years left, and that's some of that responsibility needs to start shifting his way and figuring out that balance and how do we not lose track of everything is our next challenge.
So will your kids next year be in 3 different schools?
Mm. We will never, yes, no, just kidding. Yes, we will have 3 different schools for 1 year and then we'll go back
Okay.
to 2 schools.
Okay.
Um,
Because your middle school is an actual middle school, right?
our middle school is 7, 8, 9.
But it's like an actual
It is
separate school.
separate
Okay.
from, yeah, the school our kids are in is separate from the elementary schools.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll have 1 year of, I was thinking it was this year, but you're right, with
Yeah.
freshmen
One
being
more
within
year.
middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. But they will never all be in the same school again, which makes me sad because it's just a lot of different communications to like coordinate.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
And
Again,
really, this year already gets complex because even though he's physically in the middle school, a lot of things is with the high school. So really, we're going to have to start managing some of the high school stuff as well, along with the middle and the elementary school.
are the schedules different?
Yes.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate, I've been calling Jen and getting her wisdom along the way as I prepare for the school transition. And for us, I'm more sad than anything to be transitioning into this next stage of just less flexibility, of, I guess, realizing that she's a little kid, but she's not a little kid. It's that next season. And as we all know, motherhood is full of seasons. And, I'm trying to embrace how much I know she will love this season, even if I don't love this.
After we get through the no nap.
Yes. And I do have a 5-year-old who still needs and loves a nap. She is, for example, the last 2 days she hasn't napped. And I know if she doesn't nap today, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. And 3 is kind of our like limit as an amount of days she can go without napping. So we're going to have to push that to 5 somehow. And it'll be interesting. But again, thank you for at least a little bit of some nuggets of helping all of us transition back to a new season. And again, that family email, I think, is the number one thing that I have. I mean, again, I've started to implement it. I've actually started to switch all of our bills to that family email too, because my husband will sometimes set up things under his email and then I never see them. And then I try to call to pay the bill and I'm not authorized. So having a single email when we do share finances makes a lot of sense. So thank you. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Being Better Everyday podcast. Thank you for listening. I truly appreciate each listener. If you've enjoyed the conversation, I'd love if you would leave a rating and review or share it with your bestie to help me reach more women looking to ask the hard questions and live above that status quo. To see any visuals, head over to my YouTube channel. Links, socials, and resources mentioned can be found in today's show notes. If you're looking for more, you can find me on Instagram at julie.pw designs, sharing the behind the scenes of my everyday life as a millennial mom, corporate girly, and small business owner. Until next time, keep on taking one step at a time towards your version of being better every day.